trying to rectify that by changing the food every day, you're going to have inconsistent stools anyway. You know, I remember when my dog Rio was diagnosed with allergies, and they wanted me to go through this food thing. I said, you know what, let me spend 150 bucks. Let's do a blood test. Let's find out exactly what Rio is allergic to. Rather than go through all this suffering of months and months and months. We took an allergy test. We found out exactly what he was allergic to. We made a vaccine. Every couple of weeks I'd give him a subcutaneous shot. We lived for 10 years after that without any reaction whatsoever. Yet so many vets are, for whatever reason, are afraid to say, take the allergy test. They want to do this food thing first. I don't know whether they all have money invested in dog food companies or not. I want to get to Dr. G's for a while. Dr. G's fresh pet food. A food that I feed my own pets. And I'm very, very careful about what I feed my pets. And obviously I believe in the food. I've known you for years. And I just know that what you put in your food, you're going to make for your dog. And if you're making it for your dog, who I know that you're making the best quality food you can make. Now, we often hear the terms, when we talk about dog food, preservatives. Now, what's the difference between natural preservatives and synthetic preservatives? I know, for example, Dr. G's fresh pet food doesn't have synthetic preservatives. And we're going to talk about the reason in a little while. There's no need for it because it's fresh. But what is the real difference, and what are the dangers of using synthetic preservatives for our dogs and cats on a long-term basis?
Synthetic preservatives, just like the name implies, are chemicals that are added to the food. And mainly, the most susceptible ingredient in a pet food is the fat. And since the fat's sprayed on the surface for palatability and enhancement, it's exposed to the air. And the breakdown of fat in an oxygen environment is called oxidation. The end products of oxidation are free radicals. They're cancer-producing substances that occur naturally in fats. That's when fats go rancid, and you can smell that rancidity. You know, you have a bag of potato chips in your cupboard. You can smell when that goes bad. Okay, and the end products are very bad things. So the chemical companies developed these synthetic antioxidants to help prevent the oxidation. And they do a great job. Unfortunately, they carry their own toxic value to it with their compounds. And many people just don't want to feed their dog these toxic chemicals. So they're between a rock and a hard place, which is either you feed natural or you feed a synthetic preservative. Natural preservatives are great as long as they last. They don't last as long as synthetic. That's one of the challenges we have.
It's so interesting you said that. When I came over here this morning, I brought a bag of dog food. I'm not going to mention the name of it, but I looked at the expiration date on the bag of dog food. It was like 2013. 2013, okay? Yeah. I'm not eating anything that's dated 2013. Sure as heck my dogs aren't. And that's one of the reasons, and we're going to talk more about Dr. G's, but one of the reasons I like this is because it is made fresh. And it's not going to sit on store shelves for months. And prior to getting to the store shelves, how long is it sitting in that railroad car, or how long is it sitting in that 18-wheeler stuck in the freeway somewhere? So the concept is that if you're using a food that is fresh, and the name of your food, fresh, obviously, you don't need the synthetic preservatives because the food's going to be used and gone before it can go bad. Exactly. Is that pretty much the concept?
Yeah, we have the best of both worlds with a fresh dog food like Dr. G's. And Dr. G's is really the only one out there of its kind. I've helped develop many wonderful formulas for holistic and natural food, which I'm very proud of. Once these products leave my factory, they're out of my control. I did the best job I could making it. And believe me, when I put that product in a bag, it's as good as anything out there. But I can't control what happens to it
afterwards,
how long it sits on the shelf, etc. I feel that a natural preservative will give you protection, depending on environmental conditions, for about 9 months. If it's hot, if it's stored in a hot warehouse, and the upper layers of a warehouse in the summer can get up to 130 degrees, and that accelerates degradation many, many times over. You're not going to get 9 months. You're not going to get 6 months. So this has been my dilemma for years and something I've thought about. Okay, how can I make sure that the pet food that I put all this great nutrition and care in reaches my customer in that same condition? There's only one way to do it. I ship direct from my factory, the day it's made, the day after it's made, to my customer. And now I know that all the good nutrition that I built in reaches my customer and is fed to their pets in an outstanding, natural, healthy, safe condition.
And the nutritional quality when the dog eats it is the same nutritional quality as the day it was made.
Exactly.
Made the day before.
And, I think we've talked about it before, and I've got friends even in all over the country that said, Marty, you got to send me another bag. I can't send you another bag. You just got a bag. Yeah, but my cat ripped through it as soon as the UPS guy delivered it, and now it's all over the floor. And it's facetious, but it happens. It really does happen. The aroma is still coming out of the bag.
Now, we talked about toxins a little bit. What's the difference between toxins and bacteria? And how does bacteria affect pet food?
What's interesting is toxins can be in the form of a chemical toxin, or actually a fungal toxin, or a bacterial toxin. Fungi will give off toxins, okay? There's many cases where when you do an analysis for toxicity, and you do a whole scheme of different toxins out there, when you do these general tests, often pet foods have both. Will have a chemical toxin, and they will also have toxins produced, quote unquote, naturally by either bacteria or fungi or something like that. Now, what's also interesting is that some bacteria are good, okay? Obviously, we use probiotics. Probiotics are good bacteria.
It's in yogurt, for example.
Exactly. And where's that concept first developed? So we've taken the bacteria that's in yogurt, we've added it to Dr. G's. Also, there's bacteria that give Swiss cheese actually the taste and the holes, okay, when they're reproducing.
Tell me, Swiss cheese, those holes are bacteria?
No, well, it's from the gas. It's from the gas that the bacteria develop, but that's very natural and healthy. That's how all cheese is, of course, made from bacteria as a result of bacterial fermentation. So not all bacteria is bad, but unfortunately, in order to, when a pet food's made and it comes out at the end of the extruder, it's basically pasteurized. At the heat and pressure that it's under, it's pasteurized. So it comes out 100% safe. It's what does it pick up after that? And of course, the fresher you can feed your product, like a Dr. G's, the less time that if there is a contaminant around, the less time that contaminant has to begin working on the product.
So the concept here would be the same concept for human beings. The fresher the food, the healthier the food. The faster the food goes from where it's made into your belly, the healthier that food's going to be as well.
Exactly.
Now, palatability-wise, I've always found that cats have a much more sensitive palate than dogs do. And the reason I know this is over the years in working with 40,000 animals, it's very rare I have a cat eating the dog food. Pretty common I got a dog eating the cat food, or even eating the cat poop, even after it's digested, okay? So when pet food manufacturers like yourself are making a cat and a dog food, do you take that into consideration? Is the cat food made more palatable?
Absolutely. We normally, there are palatability agents, natural palatability agents, that are put into and onto pet food as it's being made. This is one of the things we have to do to make sure that this will be consumed by animals. It's the theory, unfortunately, of sugar on cereal for children, okay? You got to make it palatable or they're not going to eat it.
Exactly.
So in the case of, we do a better job in pet food, I think, than the human area does, because we're using good, natural, meat-based palatants for the food. And normally, we always do put on a different combination for cats. And we've done, there's studies going out there every day, what palatability agents are the best, And those we actually switch around a little bit because the pets do get used to one taste. You like to vary it just a little. And their noses are so sharp. They can pick up things, as you know, so quickly, okay? So you give them a little something different. Sometimes it just keeps them a little more interested.
Just by changing it every once in a while.
And minor changes, they're really minor.
So here's the big question. This is the biggest question I get. You go to the store, you pick up a bag of dog food, or you pick up a bag of cat food. You read the label. I gotta be honest with you. I consider myself a pretty literate guy. I can't pronounce more than the first 5 ingredients, and I usually don't buy things if I can't pronounce them. Now, when you read the label, now I know there's the FDA for human foods, and I guess we have AFCO, which is, I guess, is the equivalent of the FDA, is that, or not?
Well, AFCO is really an arm of AFCO. AFCO takes their walking papers from FDA. FDA makes the rules. Say, okay, this is what a dog food has to have in it. AFCO, we want you to make sure, we want you to police it on the shelf to make sure pet food manufacturers are adhering to the rules that we establish. And that's what that's the difference between them.
Now, the question is then, if you're buying a food like yours, which I know the ingredients, or you're buying another food and yet both bags say AFCO certified, is the AFCO certification pretty much a bare minimum?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Just like we talked very early in our conversation about minimal nutritional requirements and optimal nutritional requirements.
So AFCO is kind of the minimal nutritional requirements that would be.
Exactly.
So now we pick up the bag and we take a look at this and we look at the ingredients and everything. How is the average consumer, when they get Dr. G's delivered to their home, we're going to talk more about that, how should they read a pet food bag?
Well, initially, you know, the first few ingredients, and the ingredients are in order of predominance. So the number 1 listing on the bag is the number 1 ingredient in the food. Okay.
So, for example, your number 1 ingredient in Dr. G's is chicken.
Chicken. That's fresh chicken, wholesome chicken.
Which I could pronounce, by the way.
that one we got.
I can pronounce that.
And it's important. You know, it's important for most people to see a good animal protein source as number 1. Not 100% necessary, but usually it's good to see. If
you go down the list, I see the next ingredient would be chicken meal, brown rice, barley, rye, oats, chicken fat, natural chicken flavor, alfalfa meal, dry beet pulp. God, my mother would be so proud if I ate this. Seriously.
Exactly. So far we're doing okay. Those are recognized ingredients. Where we get into trouble after that is we also have to list every specific vitamin and mineral fortification we're putting in the product. And some of these have funny names, okay? There's a B vitamin called pantothenic acid. Absolutely necessary to sustain human and animal growth.
But it's natural.
And it's natural.
Okay.
Okay, it occurs naturally.
So just because the words are big now, don't be scared off by big words.
Exactly.
Okay.
I remember I was talking to someone once, and they said, "I hate chemicals." You know, I said, "Well, what about H2O?" She said, "Well, it's a chemical. H2O is a chemical." I said, "Do you know that you're ingesting H2O every day, and eventually you're going to die?" And they said, "Oh my God, we got to get H2O out of everything." I said, "Well, H2O is water."
Yeah, how do you do it? Exactly.
You know, so don't be worried about something that sounds, you know, it's dihydrogen oxide, H2O. Don't be worried.
If it says strychnine, though, I'm a little concerned.
And you should be. You should be. But that's what happened. It's the products. You know, when you get down the list and you start seeing pantothenic acid and biotin and tocopherol.
Now, biotin is natural too. Biotin is important for skin and coat, right?
Exactly. And another B vitamin. Tocopherols are a fat type of compound that has antioxidants. Okay. One form of tocopherols is vitamin E. But we all know natural vitamin E is essential for good health.
Exactly.
Okay. So, but the word tocopherol doesn't sound quite as good. And we're required by law, by AFCO, to put down everything we put in there. We are fortifying these diets. What we do as nutritionists is we look at what vitamins and minerals are supplied naturally through the ingredients. Then we add back enough vitamins and minerals to bring the level up to the known requirements and much more. Okay. We want to make sure that you know, that dog who might be getting, you know, 5 biscuits a day and therefore might not be eating all of his nutrition, he's still getting all the vitamins and minerals. So we will increase that level. If the requirement is 100, we as pet food manufacturers, we know what the limits are. In some cases we might put in 200. In the case of thiamine is another B vitamin. We know that in the manufacturing process, Thiamine happens to be one of those vitamins that are destroyed by heat. Therefore, as a nutritionist, we know this, and we add much more thiamine to the formula before cooking to make sure that when it comes out, we have enough.
Knowing that some would have been burnt off in the cooking.
Exactly. Right. So this is another reason why, just for a second, getting back to this raw diet business and people making their own diets. There's a lot of nutrition here. There's a lot of nutrition principles that the average person just doesn't have. I'm an expert. I know what has to go into food. But
you know that if you have a cat, it needs taurine. If you have a dog, it doesn't need taurine. You shouldn't get taurine.
Right.
Yet some people say, what amazes me is there are certain foods on the market, people buy dog food and they'll feed it to their cat. So they'll buy cat food and feed it to the dog because the dog likes it. I try to explain to them that they have different nutritional needs, and therefore the products have to be made differently.
Right. Taurine is interesting. Taurine is an amino acid, and it's found primarily in animal protein. Some people will actually tell me, occasionally I'll look at the taurine level of my food. If I have a lot of chicken in it, a lot of different sources of lamb, chicken, etc. And I'll do an analysis of how much taurine is in there. Well, if the requirement, for instance, is 2,000 parts per million, 200 milligrams per kilogram, and I do an analysis of the naturally occurring taurine, and it's showing me that I have 3,000, I've more than met the requirement. I know I have an optimum amount. Some people will come back to me and say, you don't have taurine in your food. It's not on the label. I said, no, it's there, but it's occurring naturally. I don't have to add any extra. It occurs
naturally.
It's interesting, some of the poorer quality foods that don't use as much animal protein actually do have to add back taurine synthetically in order to meet the requirement.
That's why it's so important that people really learn how to read a label.
Exactly right.
So, and if they read the label, is there anything they should look for on a dog or cat food label that should send up a red flag?
It's difficult, again, because AFCO deals in minimal nutritional requirements as opposed to optimal. And we're required by law to really meet their requirements for a label. It's difficult for the average consumer to really say, ha, I know this is a better diet because of this. As we talked about before, the best way to do it is, you look at the first 4 or 5 ingredients. You make sure that there's a high level of animal protein in there, which is good. You make sure you're hoping that the grains that are there are whole grains. We use whole brown rice, we use whole barley, things like that. So it's getting all the nutrition that's built into these ingredients by nature ends up in the food. For instance, when you take rice and polished rice, you take the bran off, not the hull. A rice kernel has a hull, then it has the bran, the part right around the kernel, and then it has the white kernel. But when you quote-unquote polish rice, you're taking off the bran. The bran is where all the vitamins are. Okay? That's why I happen to enjoy, whenever I go to a Chinese restaurant, I want brown rice. I want that extra nutrition in a natural form as opposed to polished rice. And that's what we use also in Dr.
It's brown rice.
Brown rice.
Same food we can eat.
There you go.
Getting away from the papers for a second. Dr. G's has been around for a while. I know you were involved with making the other foods and developing. What provoked you to say, you know what, it's time for me to make sure that when dogs and cats want to get the best nutrition, it's available for them. And there are some great dog foods on the market. We agree on that. Some great cat foods on the market. And for years, I fed my dogs a certain brand. But when I looked at your label, and I realized the concept of fresh, and I'm Romanian. I'm like gypsy in the background, and I always grew up where if my grandmother was making a chicken that night, she would be at the butcher shop that morning buying the chicken. If she was making vegetables, she'd go to the vegetable guy, the fruit guy, the fish guy, this guy. I grew up partially in the Bronx, so there was a fish guy and a meat guy in every corner. You don't have the ability to do that, so you have to bank on other people doing it right now. Is that pretty much why you decided, you know what, I want to make sure that dogs and cats out there have the best available nutrition, the freshest nutrition they can get, And that's pretty much what separates Dr. G's from the other foods on the market. They're good, but there's something better. And I know, you know, as the founder, and of course you're going to agree with me, but for my listeners out there, you know, I just bought a bag of food over here. I told you, I think the expiration was 2012 or 2013. And people are always saying, Warren, what do you feed your dog? And this is what I feed my dog. I feed my dog Dr. G's. This is not a commercial. This is just because it's a better food and it's fresh. And what I would recommend to my listeners and people viewing the web is read the label yourself. And we're going to have some links and some other stuff. And he doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to write some articles on nutrition. Because what you eat is what you are. I can do all the behavior work in the world. I can be the greatest behaviorist, train 40,000 animals, I can name celebrities and this, that, and the other thing. The bottom line is, if the dog or cat is not getting the nutrition it needs, my behavioral advice is not going to work. Because in order to learn, whether it be a child, a dog, a cat, a rat, or a hamster, it has to have proper nutrition. If the nutrition isn't proper, we find that in our schools where kids don't get breakfast in the morning, that if they're not getting the right nutrition. So I always tell people that when it comes to your dog or your cat, the average lifespans have pretty much increased a little bit. Not that much, but they've increased a little bit due to veterinary care and diagnostic ability right now. But I'm a firm believer that, I just read something, actually it was just this morning before I came over here, that 1 out of 6 Americans is going to live to be 100 years old. So the lifespan has actually increased. 1 out of 6 Americans is going to live to be 100 years old. And they base that on good medical care and better nutrition. We know much better what to eat now. So if you have the average lifespan of a German Shepherd being 12 or 13 years, as a dog guardian or a cat guardian, doesn't it make common sense that if better nutrition and better vet care is going to, or medical care is going to take care of me, the same works for our dog or cat. So getting the best nutrition possible is obviously the right thing to do.
Yeah. Nutrition has the general terminology of nutrition. It's taken on some new meanings as we talk about. There's minimal nutritional requirements. Have I met the vitamin A requirement? Vitamin A. But now we're talking about functional ingredients in the form of omega-3 fatty acids, for instance, which has a huge effect on the immune system. This is new information that we know. And now most really good foods, like Dr. G, are formulated to supply a high level of omega-3 fatty acids. But nutrition goes beyond that. And again, there's many good foods out there. I've developed many good foods. This is a great formula. I can show you other foods on the market that either I've developed or other people have developed that have just as good a formula. But what happens to that product when it sits around and now you've got toxins being produced? Okay? That's a situation that is a very negative situation. We don't know what it means, okay? So immediate nutrition, we can meet the nutritional requirements, but what else is being ingested? That's my concern. And you asked me, why I got so concerned about this. I got concerned because we would make, that's what my company does. We make high-end pet foods for a lot of other people. I develop formulas for a lot of other people. And I'd go into the warehouse and I'd take a look at a bag that had broken over and through, no fault of anyone, something hit it. And I'd smell it, and I'd smell it and I could smell rancidity. And I'd look at the date code thinking that, wow, this must be really old. It was like 6 or 7 months old. And now I'm worried.
Exactly.
Holy moly, how can, and this is going to be shipped out tomorrow, stay on a pet food shelf for another month until it's sold. I said, holy moly, what's happening here? And that's what concerned me. That's why Dr. G.
I'm going to tell you a funny story, and then I'm going to give people the website. Not that long ago, about 2 years ago, I was down at one of probably the largest private labelers of pet food in the country. I think it was Arkansas. Arkansas, I think it was. Tennessee, Arkansas. It was a sunny place. Anyway, I was down there, and I had an opportunity to speak to their head nutritionist. First of all, I was very upset at the fact that they had 200 or 300 dogs confined in kennels that they would test their products on. That just bothered me the way the dogs were kept. But that aside. So I'm sitting down speaking to the nutritionist, and I said, how long have you been into animal nutrition? He said, well, I started here about 6 months ago, and I went to school in Italy. But before this, I was the nutritionist for Frito-Lay. What the hell does corn chips have to do with dog food? That was what's going through my head. What does corn chips have? So this was a human nutritionist that is now working in the pet field. Sure, he has knowledge, but I would want to know that if I'm feeding my dog a dog food, it was developed by someone who understands the physiology of a dog or a cat, not just the physiology of a human being. And we're responsible. Everything that our dogs and cats eat, we give them. We're the provider. So if we're giving them bad stuff and it makes them sick, it's our fault. We have a choice now. We have a choice of natural, we have a choice of healthy, we have a choice of fresh, and why not use that if it's available? Does it cost a little bit more? Sure it does. Is it worth a little bit more? In the end, what it is, because if your dog is getting a good diet, if your cat is getting a good diet, if a human being is getting a good diet, they're less apt to develop medical problems as they get older. So in the long run, you're going to save money by spending a few more dollars now to make sure that your dog and cat is going to be healthy. So to end this, first of all, for those people that want more information on Dr. G's, they can go to their website. It's drgsfreshpetfood.com. And if you can't remember that, that's okay. You're going to see it all over the website, so it'll be there. And if you had one word or one sentence to leave people with when it comes to pet nutrition, would you say read the label, be consistent, and don't be fooled by all of the different items that are out there that have all of these amazing claims?
And I add one thing to that. Again, everything you hear or see in print is not necessarily true. And you have to use your own good judgment, do some research, find out for yourself what sounds right and what doesn't. And I guess one example what I'm trying to say is there is a pet food manufacturer out there now, big company, who's developed diets for specific breeds. This is such a fallacy, and it bothers me that they're propagating this negative and misinformation, and it's not right.
I'm smiling because I'm thinking about if you have a schnoodle, you got to buy a bag of schnauzer food and a bag of poodle food and mix the two foods together. You know? So, and the majority of dogs and cats are generic, or mixed breed dogs and cats. So to have a food for Great Danes. Another interesting, and I just heard this last week. I have always been an advocate. You know, you're familiar obviously with gastric torsion and bloat.
Sure.
Okay, and the rule of thumb, people, is very simple. You don't feed your dog and exercise them right afterwards, or you don't exercise them and feed them. It's that simple. I had always been told, and even when I was studying at the University of Franklin, I was always told that larger dogs should be fed higher off the ground, on raised dishes. Now the Veterinary Medical Association is saying from a bloat perspective, the dog should be fed at floor level. Right. And one little secret out there, we were talking about this before. If you have one of those dogs like I have, that when Dr. G's gets delivered to my house is ravenous, he doesn't want to even know that the UPS guy is there, all he wants is his bag of food. If you have that type of dog, you're going to have to be really, really careful to make sure you put this away, because it is so palatable, and they love it, and the nutrition is there for them. So, again, I hope we answered those questions for you about the concept that so many dog foods have been sitting on shelves for months, have been sitting on warehouses for months, and maybe manufactured one way this month and a different way the next month. There's no better way to pick any food out for yourself or your pets than to know it's fresh, it's healthy, holistic, and it has the nutrition your pet needs. And I hope that helps you guys out. Dr. J, I want to thank you for a great interview. We're going to be talking to you again, because I know in the next year or so, things are going to come up. God forbid there should not be another pet food recall, but there might be. I was surprised that there was just this big Kroger's recall recently. So they're going to come up, and I want to use you as my nutritional specialist when it comes to that, because when it comes to behavior, if your dog's peeing, I got that covered. When it goes in their belly, Dr. G has that covered. Thank you, guys.